how could they do this? Why would they do this? You guys are fucking sick.
Working Fans Podcast. Cool.
Yep.
All right, here we go. Coming down 3, 2.
Welcome back for another week of the Working Fans Podcast. This is AJ. I'm the former wrestler. We've got Dave, the ultimate fan, here with us. As we do every week, our producer Joe likes to make us sound good and makes us look way more professional than we actually are. As always, you can find us on Twitter, that's @FansWorking, Facebook, Working Fans Pod. We've got email where you can reach out to us and please contact us to let us know what you think of the podcast and for any ideas that you might have. That's workingfanswrestlingpod@gmail.com. We're on Instagram where you can keep up with us at workingfanswrestling_pod. And then you can now listen to us on all major platforms, including Anchor.fm. We're on Google Podcasts, Spotify, Breaker, Overcast, Pocket Casts, Radio Public, Apple Podcasts, and you can actually check us out on YouTube. Now, it's important when you go onto the Apple Podcasts and YouTube, hit that subscribe button, give us a rating, let us know what you think so you can help us out and we can continue to do what we love and bring you guys in as fans.
If you're listening to this podcast right now, the Working Fans Podcast, then Happy New Year to you. And we know you can listen to other podcasts, but thanks for taking the time to listen to this one, man. I mean, hey, I love podcasts myself, and I'll be listening. So,
all right, everybody, it's the Working Fans Podcast with Dave and Joe, and today we got big-time wrestling fan, teacher of poetry, lover of poetry. He's got his own book out. We're going to talk about that. Lost City Highway?
Lost City Highway.
Hi, thank you. Joe remembers. And he's my motherfucking friend, Mr. Jake St. John. Jake, how are you, sir?
Pretty good. How are you guys? Thanks for having me.
Man, thanks for coming on. So I'm going to tell the story real quick, Jake, and you can kind of jump in real quick with this. The first time I found...
First, I have to wish you a happy Stone Cold Day.
Oh.
Yeah, happy 316.
Happy 316. That's right, recorded 316. My man.
I didn't even realize that till I saw you wrote that on Facebook, and I was like, holy shit. How did that not occur to us? Perfect booking, though.
Yeah, it was, right? So, but I don't think other people are going to know this. So, Joe, were you a fan of the PWI magazines? Pro Wrestling Illustrated?
I've read them, yeah.
Okay, all right. You're a little younger, so you had the internet more than we did.
A little bit. I would say I'm still kind of technically in that old wrestling magazine bubble.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was necessarily Pro Wrestling Illustrated, because I would get the WWE magazine, right. WCW. I got the WCW comic book when they were selling it, so...
So I'm friends with AJ, and I go up to him, and I read the PWI, and I said, hey, this kid from Griswold, Connecticut got his little commentary. I don't know, was it questions, Jake, or was it like a commentary? I remember, you can correct me wrong. It was a PW Inside.
Yeah, where fans send in letters, and I sent them in a letter talking about some stuff.
Yes, it was about Psycho Sid and the Hollywood Blondes? That's not right?
Yeah, it was a push for Psycho Sid and the Hollywood Blondes, yeah.
Yeah, I remember. It was like, because there wasn't many of us around that loved wrestling when we were a kid. So when we were in that age group, I'm like, oh, this guy likes wrestling and he's in my area?
Yeah, that's usually when
I carried the magazine around with me for weeks.
I mean, that's pretty cool. Yeah, you got it printed. I was definitely jealous, man.
I guess that's probably the first time I ever was published, was that magazine, Pro Wrestling Illustrated.
Yeah, right. True. And you and AJ had a class together, right? Maybe?
Yeah, AJ and I had art together, and then you and me and Zach and Flynn, we had early child development where we had to watch kids.
Yeah, right. That was the following year. And I think before that happened, you and AJ hit it off. I told him about you, and then he said, I think I have a class with that kid. And so you guys hit it off, and then we ended up all going over your house to watch the Slamboree 94 pay-per-view.
That's right, yeah.
Which stole the show was, I want to say for me, was Tully Blanchard and Terry Funk, because they were older but still tore the fucking house down, and it was like a wild...
Yeah, that's probably the best match, yeah.
Yeah, my memory's pretty good with some of this shit, so... So what was, because I don't remember if I ever asked you this, but maybe you can tell me, what was like some of your earliest memories of wrestling, and like what got you into wrestling?
What got me into wrestling was actually, you remember Michael's Market in Jewish City?
Yes.
Where Walgreens is or whatever now?
Yep.
I would go shopping with my mother there, and I remember one day, I don't know if it was raining out or whatever, but she told me to go get a magazine, or I think they had books too, like Party Boy books or something. You know, nothing crazy, but so I was looking in the magazine section, and I found, it wasn't Pro Wrestling Illustrated. I want to say it was like Wrestling Superstars or something like that, and it was a big glossy magazine, and Lex Luger was on the cover, and I'd never seen him before. Like, it was Lex Luger on the cover, and there was a small inset photograph of the Road Warriors, and there was nobody from WWF. It was all these guys I'd never seen before.
Right.
So I grabbed the magazine and bought that, and then I had a list of all the wrestling shows that were on, and I went through the TV guide of the actual magazine and found, like, I think it was NWA, WCW at the time, something
Right.
like that, and so I got up on a Saturday morning and watched that, and I thought I got hooked. It was that one magazine, because there was all these guys. I'd only seen maybe one or two WWF shows at the time, and then seeing this magazine of a whole different world. That's what got me turned on. Found everything out.
Yeah, that was a good time in wrestling, man. I want to say we also had maybe the Great Muta was still doing his thing around that time in WCW.
Yeah, Yeah, it was about, I'd say, about a year before Muta, probably, because I remember going back probably, I remember late 86, 87, I'd say.
Yeah.
But it was that one magazine that gave me the bug. Like, that's when I just started watching nonstop.
So you had early memories probably of WrestleMania 3 with Hogan, Andre, Steamboat Savage and stuff too, maybe.
Yeah. I remember my dad, he'd get the newspaper, and he'd always tell me if there was Saturday night's main event, the wrestling results, or I remember waking up and asking him if they had the results of WrestleMania, and he read all of them.
Wow. It's so funny, like, talking to you about this stuff, like, you know, talking about the TV guide and the newspaper. Like, a lot of kids probably going to listen to this and be like, what the fuck is that shit?
I guess it's probably 75, 80 by now.
Yeah, right? Before we get into some of the stuff you're doing now, Gary the Barber in Jute City, all right? You guys knew him, and we all ended up going to SummerSlam, like, on the same trip.
Yep.
And you guys were giving me shit about this. I was telling them the other night, like, yes, we went to SummerSlam 98 on a school bus to Madison Square Garden, New York. I think the driver fell asleep on the way home, but we all made it.
Yep.
How did you know Gary? Like, what was your relationship? Did you just cut your hair, or how did that come about?
I'll tell you a couple stories about Gary. Gary's a cousin of mine, and that's how he started cutting hair. But he was a cousin of mine, so I knew him before. And then I was into wrestling. Zach was into wrestling, and whenever I get my haircut, we talk about it. And Gary was a huge Randy Savage fan, and he got a ticket to go up to Worcester, Worcester or Warwick. It was Warwick. And we went to see one of the shows. Terry Von Erich was on it. I think he wrestled Mr. Perfect. That was the first show that Saba Simba wasn't even a character yet on TV. And he came out, had no idea, like, was wondering why Tony Atlas was dressed like that. And so the whole thing was Gary bought these tickets with the impression that we would get to shake hands and get autographs from Macho Man. So we were waiting, like, they kept saying, like, intermission, then after the show. So finally after the show, we got to see, we got up to the fence, and somebody brought Randy Savage out, and Gary was talking to him and everything, and Gary was like, oh, everybody came up to see you, and Gary shook his hand, pulled him in real tight, grabbed his hand, gave him, he said he thought he broke 4 of his fingers. He said, don't do this anymore, man.
Wow.
So after that, he became an Ultimate Warrior fan.
Wow.
My only memory of Gary was I'm friends with the Lucases, so I was watching a pay-per-view over at their house, and I swear Gary
We probably
came
had the same show. I used to watch it at their house all the time.
Yep. And I remember Gary came over dressed as the Ultimate Warrior one time, and it was just the funniest thing.
I remember going to a show with Jake, and Gary has his family owns a funeral home too, if I remember correctly. It had to be.
I don't know if it's the same family, not possibly distant.
Well, okay, but you can explain this because he showed up like in a hearse and came out like the Undertaker and like a setup.
Yes, he did.
Right. So that's how he met us. And that was like the first time I ever think I actually saw and met Gary. And I'm like, well, this guy's a character.
Yeah, that's some
He
showmanship.
came running up my driveway dressed as the Ultimate Warrior one day.
That's hilarious, man.
But the other story I was going to tell you about him was I break this story out every now and then. My students at school is how I became very good, close personal friends with Dwayne Johnson.
Oh, I wanted to ask you about this anyway because he did an autograph signing at Chute City Mall, right?
Yes, he did.
And he got his haircut. Okay, you tell the story.
So it was SummerSlam, right? Where it was The Rock and Triple H for the IC title.
Yeah, ladder match. Yes.
Yeah, ladder match. So the following week was I can't remember his name, but there used to be a sports shop down the hallway from the barber shop.
Oh, CNS Sports.
Yeah, CNS Sports. And he would bring in Steve, I think his name was, would bring in all different wrestlers and everything, and he brought Conan in and whatever, and Val Venus, but he brought The Rock in right after the SummerSlam, and they needed like a place for him to hang out and everything, drink coffee and relax. So Gary had like I think that there was stairs in the back that they could bring him in without him having to go through the crowd and the line and everything. So he came in. We had coffee, and his wife at the time was pregnant with their first daughter. And yeah, he was a really cool guy. He brought Mark Henry with him, and I remember I was sitting on the couch with Mark Henry, and man, I've never felt so small. He was massive.
Yeah.
Real cool guy, soft-spoken. But yeah, I got a picture with The Rock, and Gary took a picture cutting his hair, and he's a real good guy. I mean, he hadn't hit like he obviously isn't what he is now, but just a real cool, humble kid.
Now, was there a joke or something that somebody made? I kind of remember you telling me a story, maybe, I could be wrong, that The Rock said, hey, why don't you give Mark a haircut? He likes it or something like that, and Mark Henry kind of growled jokingly.
Yeah, Mark, he didn't talk much at all. He just kind of, it was like real soft mumbles, and I don't know that he had the confidence that he has now, and he didn't want. And it was early in the morning too, so he might have not been ready to drive The Rock around. And
Sure.
he was a pretty quiet guy. He was nice to me. I talked to him briefly. I was pretty scared to approach him. He seemed not too thrilled to be awake or whatever.
Yeah, he's an intimidating presence, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Mark Henry says we're going to do something.
I mean, he talked to us kids and everything.
I get a feel like Mark Henry tells you we're going to do something today. You just go along whatever Mark Henry has planned.
Exactly.
Yeah, my buddy Josh isn't even a wrestling fan anymore, but he has a picture with Mark Henry from that day.
Yeah.
And he's even got a Polaroid with Sonny that I imagine is from those times hanging out with Gary and them.
Yeah, I actually went over
Josh. I remember Josh was big into Sonny, and he was big into Goldust. He loved Goldust when he first showed up.
That's awesome. I remember going over their house once to watch a SummerSlam. I want to say it's the one where it was the second ladder match, maybe with Razor and Shawn. It was like in Pittsburgh.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know where we watched it, but we also watched, it might have been their house, but it was like the Survivor Series where Brett beat Diesel and Diesel jackknifed him afterwards. Yep.
Yeah. Was I remember one, it was Ahmed Johnson's debut, and he like slammed Yokozuna or something like, and gave out the biggest high-pitched squeal. That was at Lucas's house because I I remember we were just rolling on the ground, like the noise that Ahmed Johnson made when he slammed him.
Dude, I still remember him making that fucking noise too. That taunts me sometimes. We want to move on here a little bit. Somewhere we got disconnected a little bit because, you know, obviously life happens, and so you developed an interest for poetry, and that's how you got your book out and everything. How did that happen? When did that happen? And give me some insight on that.
So I used to write song lyrics growing up in high school and everything. I would write really terrible song lyrics. And I was always into Jim Morrison and the Doors, going back to the Lost Boys movie. They had a couple of People Are Strange, and they had the picture of Jim Morrison. So the Doors were always something I was interested in. And I was at school up at Utah one day, and really into the Doors, really into music and everything at the time. And there was a used bookstore up at campus, and I bought a copy. I think it was Nobody Here Gets Out Alive. It was a biography on Jim Morrison, and not a very factually based autobiography, but they had a bunch of different books that Jim read and different music that he listened to. So I went back to this bookstore on campus, and I found a lot of the authors that were referenced in this book, and they were like Allen Ginsberg and Jack Kerouac. So I started reading Jack Kerouac on the road. Now this is like right when the internet first kind of started getting what it is today. So I was able to find a lot of information online about these poets and writers, and like I kept a journal online and would jot things down here or there, but I really didn't know any poets. I didn't really know what good poetry was, except for Jim Morrison. So through that book, I got turned on to all these other poets, and then I started writing. It was New Year's, maybe 2001, that I really said, I'm going to try and do something with this, and started taking it serious, and started reading and finding out about poetry, new poetry. And then my friend Mike, he also got into Kerouac because he was into the traveling, which we both were. So we ended up going cross country, and while we were going cross country, I was journaling and things like that. I wrote this poem called American Stranger in Mike's apartment in Las Vegas. It was like 4 a.m, just hot, sweaty, and can't sleep or anything. And I remember I just wrote it out real quick. And that eventually, when I got back to the East Coast, it was the first poem that I ever got published. So it's been cool.
Nice. And then how long after that before you got the book published then?
That was back in the fall of 2004. I was in line at a coffee shop with a friend of mine, and they were real supportive of my poetry, and I said, this will be the year. This year, it was right around New Year's, so I was like, going into this new year, it must have been 2005, I'm going to read poetry in person. I'm going to get out, and I'm not going to be shy anymore. I'll do it. So we get up to the counter, and as I'm about to pay, she says, I guess you're reading next weekend. And I look down, there's this wild flyer about poetry open mic every Sunday. And so I went the next week, and I met this guy, Tom Weigel, who this poet that was just unbelievable. I mean, this guy had this energy I'd never felt before, and we became quick friends. He was quite a bit older, not quite, 30 years or so, and he became my mentor, and he helped introduce me to some other poets and things like that, and then started publishing in different magazines. I had a couple of small limited edition, like 30 or 40 copies, sold books here or there, real small press, like do-it-yourself, punk rock type magazines and books. And then this book came about in late 2018. I had gotten published in this magazine out in Mystic a couple of times called Out of Hour. This editor, Sarah Page, she ran a magazine in Mystic, Connecticut, and then relocated out to San Francisco, kept the magazine going. I got a couple more poems placed, and then one day I got an email from this kid, John Braunbacher, and he was talking about my poetry and how he enjoyed it and everything, and how he was starting a press. And so we kind of talked over the years, nothing came of it, and then maybe 4 or 5 years later, I realized that I had a stack of poems, like 15 years worth almost of poems that had been published and really solidified. And John and I had always been in touch, and he really wanted to do a book. And so it just kind of came together like that, just by chance, him catching my poem in a magazine out in Los Angeles, and that's how it happened. I mean, it got published in San Francisco, and he was down in L.A., it just kind of fate took over, I guess.
That's nice, man. That's cool. Let me ask you now, you've done poetry live on stage too, right?
Yeah, on stage, yeah. I've done readings all around Connecticut, done a lot of feature readings. I did, a friend of mine videotaped me because there was a festival out in Leicester, England, a couple years back, and I had video about 10 minutes worth that I read and sent out to this Beat Generation festival out in England, so that was pretty wild.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, so do you get like a nervous energy before you get up there sometimes, or?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it doesn't matter if there's 5 people in the crowd or 500. I mean, I'd be lucky to be in front of 500 people, but it doesn't matter how, for me at least, for how many people. A lot of nervous energy, a lot of pacing, a lot of wandering around, and I don't know why, it's just how it always is. I keep it bottled up, and it's different. No,
we get it. I mean, there's certain, obviously we're all friends here, but like there's certain times like we've interviewed like Al Snow or somebody, and like I know minutes before, like I'm like, I got like a nervous but kind of excited too energy, like, man, I can't wait to see how this fucking goes, you know, like I kind of want to jump into it and get over with, but I'm also like, let's do this, you know, like I don't want to wait around, you know.
Exactly. Yeah, I just want to jump in. I want to get to it, and
Right. Let the chips fall where they fell, but we're gonna find out, right?
I feel like that was a lot of the early interviews with us, where we get like real nervous before, and it's like, fuck, I don't know what to expect.
I do think, right, because we do this almost on a weekly basis. We're a little more relaxed, but I will say this: if tomorrow we scored a fucking interview with, all right, I'm not even just the biggest fan of the guy, but let's say we scored an interview with fucking Batista or something. Like, he's okay, but you know what I mean? I'd be fucking like, holy shit, we got fucking Batista. Like, we can't fuck this up.
Yeah,
like, you know what I mean? Like,
exactly. Yeah.
So, So, I think there's levels to it. I mean, I think with anything, repetition, if you do something all the time, but... The Lost City Highway, now, did that name come along with this road trip?
Yeah, I mean, getting the book together, getting the poems organized and edited down, and John was real great about keeping the integrity of the poem, and any editing decisions, he didn't do anything until I signed off on it. And the one thing that neither of us could figure out was the title of the book. Like, I was going through taking titles of poems and then taking phrases, and I was texting out to a lot of different poet friends, John Greiner, and Dave Kennedy, and I was like, what about this title? What about this title? And every time they're like, nah, it doesn't mean anything. That's weak. You're giving this image. It shouldn't be like that. And like John would shoot me a text like, what do you think about this? I was like, I don't know. And I'd send it to him. He's like, I don't know. And then finally, like, we were kicking around some different phrases as far as having a highway and then cities, and I don't remember how exactly the title came about, but we're talking like a good month at least trying to figure out just the title of the book. Like, we were ready to go. We were ready to do it, and we should have a title for the book. We didn't know what to call it. I'm very, very particular about titling poems and titling books. Like, everything has to make sense. It can't be all just grab a title and go with it. I'm very particular that everything be specific and important. So the title of the book was, we couldn't go forward until I felt very happy with it. And eventually when Lost City Highway clicked, we both were kind of like, yeah, that's the title right there. And because a lot of the poems are road trips and poems when I was living in New London and things like that. And so it all kind of tied up 15 years where the poems were written.
We got a fan question for you today. Our boy Mike Flynn had messaged us with some questions for you. I'm going to hit you with them. He's got 3 of them. I think you saw some of these. Your feelings on the Raven character and kind of the whole Edgar Allan Poe persona. What you thought about that?
Raven, I think, Raven is just one of the greatest characters ever in wrestling. I mean, he was the Jim Morrison of pro wrestling. Just fantastic. I mean, I loved Scotty Anthony at the time, and I loved his work going back to like Global, and just for him to go from that big Flamingo character to real life Raven was just
dude.
One of my favorite characters ever.
I'm so glad you said Scotty Anthony, because that's the first time I saw him too in Global Wrestling Federation, and there was something about, I watched a match where he just turned it up a notch and he started doing all his moves really fast, and I'm like, oh, I like this guy. And then I want to say he had the Scotty Flamingo thing in WCW, and I rooted for him. I think he had the light heavyweight title briefly.
That's where I became a fan of it.
Yeah.
And, like, it blew my mind years later that Raven was Scotty.
So then we go to Johnny
That's
Polo.
right, yeah. He went to WCW before, and then Johnny Polo, that's what it was, because I was thinking Scotty Flamingo and Johnny Polo, and I wanted to call him Johnny Flamingo.
Yes.
That's right. He had that denim jacket with the pink fringe on the arms.
Yes. That he was managed, and when he got to WWE, he was managing Adam Bomb as Johnny Polo.
Yep.
And he used to cut this promo
Quebec.
with the Quebecers too, right. But he would always cut this promo with Adam Bomb. I remember when he talked about picking him up for like the power bomb or choke slam. He'd be like, well, "Up you go and down you stay," and I was just like, "Oh, that fucking was like just so good for me as a kid." And I remember reading about Raven in the magazines, and I was like, "Who's this fucking Raven guy? Who's Raven?" Yeah. And then when I saw him, and I'm like, "Holy shit!" You know, it was such a transformation.
Yeah, it was the tattoos, the scowl, because he was always a happy-go-lucky goofball character.
Right.
And, man, there was just something different. There was really nothing like that in wrestling at the time.
No.
ECW was just starting out, but he really ushered in that real life character, that real building off who they were in real life. Because it sounds like he was having a tough time himself at that period of his life, and he just Raven was unbelievable.
Yeah, I'm a big fan. All right, so other question too. We have two more questions. How would you rate the poetry of the genius Lanny Poffo?
I would probably...
On a scale of 1 to 10.
On a scale of 1 to 10?
Yeah.
We're not doing the melter. On a scale of 1 to 10, I would put it on a frisbee and I would throw it in an opposite direction.
Okay. So, Genius isn't getting it done on the poetry side or the wrestling side, really, because he really didn't... Out of the father and the brother... Clearly, Lanny was not having the most successful career out of them. So
no, and I'm sure he's a wonderful guy. I feel bad. I'm telling stories about Macho Man breaking my cousin's fingers and Mark Henry intimidating all of us, but they really were cool guys. Right? Yeah. They just, I mean, it was Macho Man. You want to have a story. Yeah. Macho Man tried to physically assault you.
Damn right. All right. And then the last question we got from Mike was, as a big fan of Jim Morrison, what are some of your thoughts on John Morrison?
I was just talking about this the other night, not as much John Morrison, but season 1 of Lucha Underground, where John Morrison was Johnny Mundo, where he came off as like a cheap D-level movie actor, action actor, Steven Seagal type, like just a cheesy actor. I just thought he was wonderful. Thinking of him as Johnny Morrison just reminds me of The Miz, and that just gets me mad.
I will say that that Lucha Underground, man, that really caught on with me. Like, I remember watching some episodes kind of haphazardly, and then next thing I know, I'm getting, like, enthralled in this. I'm like, well, this is completely different than anything else out there. And, like, we're killing people, we're having aliens. It was like a comic book.
Time travelers.
Yeah. Comic book / wrestling sci-fi.
Yeah. I thought it was great. The first season 1, season 2, first half of season 2. I thought there was nothing like it. It was really pretty creative.
Yeah, with that Vampiro Pentagon season finale match, that was something to see.
Yeah, they beat the shit out of each other. Well, we're gonna keep you around later for the 531 Is there anything you want to promote before we end this segment, though, Jake?
The book's still available on Amazon, Lost City Highway by Jake St. John. That's pretty much it, guys. Don't have too much going on right now other than the book and just getting through the next couple of weeks.
All right, my man. Yeah, hopefully we all get through the next couple of weeks with no issues and life gets back to a little normalcy. When we can maybe watch wrestling with crowds again, hopefully at some point in the next month or so.
Yeah.
Yeah, you guys looking forward to a Raw tonight from an empty Performance Center where you're bringing in Stone Cold, you're bringing in a couple other
Undertaker.
people.
Stone Cold, Undertaker are going to be in front of an empty arena show tonight.
You're really popping the boys with that one.
Jesus. Yeah, that's what we did before we even go. We'll just talk about that for a second because that's a great point. Like, it is, and it's not just WWE. I mean, AEW is doing it this week too. They're going to have an empty arena show.
Yeah.
UFC just did. And we don't know if these guys are still going to be able to have shows. And I know Vince is getting a lot of heat for not canceling Mania yet, but there is talk that I guess there's some insurance thing that he's not going to get paid if he cancels it. And I gotta tell you, like, I don't know if I would if you can tell me I could wait another week or two and they're gonna pay for fucking everything, I'd probably like, all right, the show's still on as far as I
think about it though. Owen died mid-show and they kept going.
Oh
so
yeah, this motherfucker ain't stopping anyway. Yeah. I mean, if you tell me,
I saw a headline today that the town have to step in and shut it down.
Oh no shit! Yeah, he's not. If they don't, they must not know Vince McMahon. If they're waiting for this guy,
exactly. It's Vince McMahon. Yeah, you expect him to do one thing. He's not going to do it.
Nah, he don't give a fuck. He will put that show on an empty arena and book himself against God again and do it like an main event and say, "This is what we're doing."
No, he's going to put himself against the coronavirus.
The corona, he will.
Beat it, and then it's going to be fake news.
Don't give him any ideas.
Yeah.
We have Donald Trump, our president, as special referee or some shit. Oh man. Yeah,
that's the America screw job.
Yeah, don't. If whoever has to make this decision, the governor or if it's the mayor, I don't know, in Tampa, whoever has to make, just make it already because Vince ain't fucking doing it. You're wasting your time.
Yeah, I got to know whether to buy those shows on Fight TV too. I don't want to pay the money now and then go through the claims process with Fight. Look, I bought Joey Ryan's Penis Party 2. It is not happening. I would like my money back. And if you put it back on the bill, can you put it under something different?
Okay. On that note, that's going to do it for this segment. Jake's going to stick around with us. This is the Working Fans Podcast. Working Fans Podcast with AJ and Dave. And we got a special guest today. One half of the former NWA Tag Team Champions and part of the group Strictly Business, Mr. Royce Isaac. Royce, how are you, sir?
Hey, what's up, guys? Thanks for having me on.
It's our pleasure, Royce. I think my co-host forgot to mention that also the future Crockett Cup winner for 2020.
Hey.
Just saying.
No, I appreciate that we got to it eventually because that's definitely on the docket for sure, man. The Crockett Cup's coming up April 19th, so we are in wild card season, baby. I'm ready to have a big year. Obviously, last year Crockett Cup was a coming out party of sorts for the wild cards. So I think this year, onward and upward, we got to take the cup home with us, baby.
Yeah, it's funny you talk about that. Obviously, you're a competitor, you're an athlete. Did I see you training with Josh Barnett?
Yeah, man. So, the cool thing is, living in LA the past 2.5 years now, is you make some pretty cool connections. I met Josh at a suburban fight show. Randomly, it was after a GCW show, they had a suburban fight that ran directly after that I was on. I wrestled KCB, who was a really good East Coast guy for GCW. And after the match, we were just talking and bullshitting. And I think it was one of those things where, we got along. We trained together a couple times now. I have some elbow bursitis I'm dealing with, so I'm trying to heal up and whatever. But it's really cool anytime I get to learn something like a master like that. And it's someone that's had such a storied career. Josh is really, really cool. He actually referred me to the doctor that's helping with my elbow bursitis. So really legit, really good dude. I can't wait to train with him some more. I have a shoot background from my college wrestling days, and it's something that I enjoy, and I'd like to get back to. So.
Well, people talk a lot about legitimate backgrounds, and the fact that you wrestled for Cornell out there in Iowa is absolutely incredible. Any of us that did amateur wrestling know that where you want to be is a state like Iowa or Minnesota, somewhere out there in the heartland where wrestling is God.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's you either want to be in the Midwest. I think Iowa obviously has a long storied history And it's gotten to the point now too, especially for high school, and then now with K.L. Sanderson for college, Pennsylvania has gotten really, really good as far as that goes as well. So it's like there's a few really, really good hot spots for people who can shoot really well and whatnot. It's really cool now that Josh has the Bloodsport series that he's been doing, that, you know, he's been able to showcase more of like an old school pancrase shoot style for pro wrestling, because I definitely think there's an audience for that. Like, I really enjoy watching that kind of stuff. I'll still go back and watch old pancrase matches and whatnot on watch them on YouTube and stuff. And so it's definitely a different kind of spectacle in that.
Yeah, no, we're huge fans. We actually went to the Bloodsport where it was Barnett versus Minoru Suzuki, and
oh shit,
yeah, just a great show. And I'm a big MMA fan too. Like, I just watched, I think it was 248 this weekend.
Oh god, what's the name, Romero versus Adesanya or whatever.
Yes. The friggin' co-main event, the two females fighting.
The women tore it up, right?
Oh man, that was one of the craziest fights.
They stole the show.
Yeah, unbelievable damage done. Like, I don't know if that might be one of those things they say is a career shortener. It was definitely, it was a crazy fight.
You don't have too many of those in you, kind of thing. Yeah,
right.
For sure.
Now, as a competitor, too, I couldn't help but notice this on Facebook. I wanted to ask you, I'm assuming this has to do with your lifting credentials, but maybe you could clarify. Big Bad Deadlift Daddy? Is that your nickname, or is that one of them?
That is my nickname. So, I mean, that all comes from, I'm a huge Scott Steiner fan. And shout out to Scott. I know he's in recovery right now. He had a health scare. But I grew up a Scott Steiner fan. Always been a big fan of Big Papa Pump. I mean, obviously, I deadlift for workout, you know, my own personal workouts and whatnot as well. But even outside of that, one of my biggest moves in my arsenal has always been like my deadlift suplexes, and since that was something that I was kind of getting known for, it just made sense, because I didn't want to be like a small booty daddy. I mean, one, I have a big butt, that'd be kind of weird, and two, I didn't want to completely like bite off his style and whatever, but I wanted to pay homage to Steiner and kind of incorporate my own, you know, what would be my take on it. So, Big Bad Deadlift Daddy is how that came into play.
Awesome.
Royce, the first place I got a chance to really see you perform was Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. And at that point, you had more of a almost Scott Steiner look with the bleach blonde hair and the goatee. But did working for Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, did that actually get you used to the studio, which seems more similar to what you're doing now with the NWA?
Yeah, no, I definitely think that style, like, cause a lot of people don't realize that they have to watch Hollywood. It is filmed in that studio style. I think that really helped me be prepared for what a studio day would be like. I think that, you know, getting to work with various, you know, talented people on the way up there, like, you know, people like Bateman, and Andy Brown, who's still there, is really, really talented. Super beneficial for me. It was definitely it was the same similar style. And I don't know if a lot of people really get that on their come up in the indies. It's like, there's definitely a lot of places where you can get a really good match and some that can help you become a really good wrestler, because maybe you're getting 20 or 30 minutes. But especially when you get to TV somewhere or you work for a big company, there might be times you have to realize how to, like, get yourself over, but only wrestle for 6 to 8 minutes. And Hollywood also really helps with that, with, you know, time constraints and hard cameras and all the kind of little extra stuff that they don't always necessarily go over unless you have a really good trainer, you know?
One of the matches that I'm going to recommend people go out and check out there, anybody who's a fan of yours or a fan listening to this podcast right now, check out, I believe it's from 2018, you versus Joey Ryan. If they want to see how good of a skill set you have and how great you are at selling and playing to the crowd, that match, I thought you were absolutely phenomenal. So I hope people go out and check that one out.
I appreciate that. I really enjoyed that match too. I think Joey when Joey really wants to go and do his thing, like, people forget he used to be Joey Ryan, the technical wizard. Joey's really good in that too. And, you know, everyone needs a good dance partner, so I got to give props to him as well. Another one, like, people like the blood and gore. Me and Bateman had a full rope match last year that's on YouTube in full, so I would really recommend that. And if people aren't familiar with Bateman, he got signed to Ring of Honor right around the same time that I started really doing stuff heavily with NWA. So it was really cool to have, like, a really physical, bloody beatdown match with him for sure. So both of those are on YouTube, and I would recommend either one if you're trying to check me out.
Yeah, it's interesting that you bring that up because he's talking about the technical match, you're talking about the bloody match, and now, like, you're in Strictly Business, you're a serious performer, but you also kind of have this different thing going on with Mae Valentine and Sal, and it's interesting. It almost reminds me of, like, and no offense to Sal, like, I don't want to say he's playing George Steele, but, like, it reminds me of, like, the Macho Elizabeth thing, and it's interesting, though, because it's, like, there's more versatility, it seems like you're getting to do in, different aspects of your character now, evolving.
Yeah, no, I mean, I really, personally, I find it a blessing that I've been able to show off more folds in my character and what I can do in more range. I think that only benefits me long term. Like, I hope people can see that and recognize that as well, and hopefully they will over time. I think it's important to not just be one dimensional. Like, there should be, like, wrestling, one of its greatest attributes to me is that it's like such a variety show that you get so much out of it. And the more that I can contribute to that, the happier kind of I'll be, because I think that, it's like some people, you never know what's going to stick with people. Obviously, there's a lot of people that really enjoy good technical wrestling. There's some people that want to see car crashes and whatever, and there's some people that, like, I remember so many of, like, the mid-card, the low-card people from the Attitude Era, and it has nothing to do with anything they were doing in the ring. It was because of vignettes and, promos and whatever the interaction was between them and another mid-card. Like, that kind of stuff can be really memorable, too. And I think if you can show everything, no matter where you're at on the card, and luckily I'm in a place where I'm with Strictly Business where, it's a primo act and whatnot, but you can really show more value for yourself when you are in a setting like that where you can show your range.
Royce, we had on about a month and a half ago, we had a legend and Ricky Morton on, and he gave you one of the best compliments I think that you can give a fellow wrestler. And he said that wrestling you and Tom Latimer was basically like having a night off in the ring. And to hear a legend actually talk about you that way, that's got to be a cool thing. But what were your influences growing up, and what time period did you actually start really following wrestling?
Well, yeah, I just turned 31 in February, so I'm an Attitude Era baby. Like, I came up when, wrestling was really hitting its boom period. I was definitely more of a WWF guy than WCW, but I watched both products pretty regularly. When I was a kid, I liked all the cool guys, all the Stone Cold, The Rock, Mankind. I was like a big, obviously, Scott Steiner fan, big Booker T fan, Diamond Dallas Page. All those kind of guys. And then when it comes to, like, my own personal stuff, I kind of try to take from everywhere. I think it's people do themselves a real disservice when you see someone and they're just doing, like, you can tell, oh, this guy is like a huge, I don't know, Johnny Gargano fan, and they're just doing like a cosplay of him. Like, Gargano's great, man. He's one of the best, obviously. He's amazing, but, like, there's already him. He's already doing himself. So, like, you got to find your own style and your own voice and your own self. And if you take a little bit from here, a little bit from there, a little bit of everywhere, you can actually make your own original kind of potion and thing. And I think it's also important, especially for character kind of work, take stuff from outside of wrestling. Like, don't just try to be like, there are certainly elements of, like, Macho and Liz with me and Myra, especially with almost even the shoot relationship of Macho being paranoid and whatever, but, like, you can always take from various forms of media and get influence from there. Like, I've always been a really big fan of Jack Burton from Big Trouble in Little China, Kurt Russell's character. Like, I think there's something really, it's an amazing movie, and it's something that really is easily translatable to a face or a heel, for that matter. Where I'm, like, a big fan of, in the first Mortal Kombat movie, which is, like, super underrated as far as video game movies go. The second one kind of sucks, and I think that's partly why, but the first one was great. If you look at Johnny Cage's character in there, he's really good at breaking the fourth wall without breaking it too hard, kind of laughing at himself, but then when he needs to be taken seriously, he's taken seriously, because there is that element of, like, wrestling can be ha-ha and can be hokey and can be funny, but no matter who you are, you can never be taken seriously in the ring as a threat. Like, you kind of maximize your ceiling of where you can be.
Yeah, there's a fine line between comedy wrestling and absurdity, and if you make yourself too much of a joke, then you're taken away from it.
Sure, or if you just not to get too sidetracked, but or if you do make yourself quite a bit of a joke, know when there's the moment that you have to turn it up a notch and really show people, hey, I'm an ass kicker and I'm a serious threat. You have to take me seriously. And then you can go back to your stick and it's fine.
Timing.
I learned years ago, I wrestled, and I was taught by Adrian Street many years ago, because I'm old. But one of the things that was amazing about Adrian was he took that really effeminate character, and it was a character where literally you would think anybody off the street would be able to just whoop the shit out of him. But when it came time to actually perform in the ring, he literally could maul anyone. So it's that finding that fine line and dancing it.
Sure. Or like you look at like Aaron Stevens' early work as like Damien Sandow, he would be very like prim and proper. And like as soon as he took over though, and he turned it up a notch, you would see a completely different side of him where he'd get really, really vicious for a second. You'd think, oh yeah, shit. Like he might have been popping around, popping circumstance and kind of prancing around and doing his thing. But all of a sudden he got real serious and like, I feel a little uncomfortable now. And obviously, I think what we see, we're just starting to see a little bit of that come out with Shooter Stevens with like the elbow attack that he did to Trevor Murdoch. If you've been paying attention to that as well, but like,
oh yeah,
he's showing that kind of like, okay, yeah, Shooter Stevens is a goofball, but if you mess with him, he can take it to another level and really, elbow you in the face 300 times until you're not recognizable.
I think anybody who learns that Mongolian karate is going to be dangerous, though.
That's the thing, yeah, right. I'm not sure what the degree of black belt he is at this current time because I haven't talked to him in a few weeks. He might be like in the high 40s at this point.
Right. Well, I'll tell you what. I'm going to backtrack a little bit here because you had talked about some movies, and I have a new segment I'm doing too, and I think you'd be kind of good for it. It's basically just asking you what your favorite stuff is. We do like 5 random quick questions. You can elaborate or you can rapid fire, either way. But I'll start off with favorites. Favorite movie?
Oh, favorite movie. I mean, Big Trouble in Little China is definitely on like the top 10 list for sure. Old Boy and Sympathy for Mr. Revenge are 2 Korean flicks that I really like. They're in the same series. They're by the same director, and they're both these kind of twisted stories of revenge that are really, really good. The Dirty Dozen is definitely on my list. I just gave you 4, so we'll leave it at that.
Awesome. That was a good list. Favorite pizza?
Pepperoni. That's it. I'm sorry. Like, I know that's like really like basic B kind of stuff, but I feel like if you want to have any other meats on there and whatever, like, okay, fine, we can do that. But if it's just me and I'm just eating for myself, basic pepperoni or like double pepperoni or like pepperoni double cheese or like double cheese double pepperoni, any iteration of that is perfect. I don't think there's any, like, sometimes it's like that simplistic masterpiece that's best.
Royce, you're a genius, because I piss my wife off with that every time I go out to get pizza. If she sends me out and doesn't tell me what kind, I'm coming home with pepperoni.
There you go.
Favorite comedian?
Oh man, George Carlin and Dave Chappelle. Oh. I think they're probably like
excellent fucking choice. I actually got to see Chappelle once about 10 years ago. Mohegan Sun.
You managed to get my favorite comedian and his in the same shot.
There you go.
All right. Only 2 more. Favorite song?
That's a really good question.
Or band or musician.
Really big fan of Copyright. He's this underground rapper from Ohio who, I don't know, he still does stuff, but he's like a really good, like, punchline heavy, but also really good at layering and stuff and making songs that actually have really good meanings to it and whatever. And he's been around forever. He's an underground guy. He's fucking dope. So
awesome.
Yeah, Copyright.
And last one, besides yourself, favorite wrestler?
Favorite wrestler, Scott Steiner or Dolph Ziggler.
Oh, very good, very good.
Dolph Ziggler, one of the most underrated wrestlers on the planet, in my opinion.
I agree, man. I agree. I think that there's a few times that he really could have been given the ball and let run with it, but at the same time, it's really hard. Like, he was still a multiple-time world champion, so he had the great Survivor Series moment and all that. Like, you know what I mean? Like, he still has had a really, really storied, amazingly long career. It's just someone that I think also he could have definitely done even more. And, you know, it is what it is, man. I hats off to him, man. He's a legend.
Yeah. To me, he's got that Mr. Perfect thing where he can't have a bad match, so that makes him pliable to make everybody else look so good.
Absolutely, yes. Absolutely, I agree with that.
Now, one other question. You know, you're in strictly business, NWA, faction with the heavyweight champion. Obviously it's not like the Four Horsemen, but it's a faction. It kind of gives me memories of that. Just out of curiosity, hypothetical fantasy booker, if you could put a fourth guy with you, besides, I'm not discounting Camille or anybody, but, besides Latimer and Aldis, who would be another guy you think that might fit in that group?
I don't want to do a disservice to Camille. I think she could beat up most guys out there. So
Agreed.
Unfortunately, I can't give you a good answer on that because I wouldn't, I'd feel like I'd be disrespecting her.
Nope.
100%.
She honestly might be the second toughest in our group behind Nick. Just being real.
All right. Camille, it is. Beautiful. I go, because she's wrestling next week. She's been more of like the bodyguard type.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm excited to see where that all goes because Camille's a force to be reckoned with, and I think the fans are really going to respond to that.
And they've done such a great job, I think, with not letting her talk yet, and kind of like it's so intriguing to me the way they developed her.
I saw a workout that she did with Latimer and with Braun Strowman, and I don't think I would want to try to keep up with her in the gym, to be honest with you.
No, not at all. Not at all. She's a beast.
Crockett Cup's coming up. Is there anything you want to promote out there?
I mean, the biggest thing is Crockett Cup. If anyone's listening and they're not clued into what it's all about, April 19th in College Park, Georgia. Tickets are on sale right now at nationalwrestlingalliance.com/Crockett Cup. If you go on my Instagram, you can find out more information about all that at Royce Isaac. I think right now, I'm not sure when this will air, but I know they're doing some 4-pack deals on tickets and all that stuff. I would definitely get on that ASAP. There's obviously also going to be an internet pay-per-view on Fight TV, so you can order it there if you're worried about traveling around during this time and going down to Georgia. Although Georgia's been fine, Atlanta's been fine from all I can tell, so shouldn't be any problems flying there, I don't think. But
And like you talked about, if anybody listening to this is heading out to the Atlanta area, those 4-packs are actually 4 for $100. So that's only $25 a seat. That's pretty damn good for such a level of wrestling show.
Yeah. They already just on this last week, the Power, they announced some of the talent, and it's I'm not surprised that Bill and Ink was going to be there, but I'm glad they are because obviously me and Tom want the rubber match there, and I want to say Ray Horace. They have some really good announcements for the matches and for some of the talent that's going to be there already. Some good NWA talent and also some really good Ring of Honor talent, and so it's going to be a good clash of styles, and it's our biggest NWA event yet, and I guarantee NWA's always done a really good job of under-promising, over-delivering on every pay-per-view, every taping that we've done. So there's definitely going to be some sick surprises for all the fans that put the faith in us.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it also. I think the opportunity to get yourself and Flip Gordon in the same ring it could blow the roof off and could steal the show, to be honest with you.
Yeah, man.
Awesome,
that was awesome. Royce, thank you very much for your time. We appreciate everything. We know that you're busy as can be out there, but please keep doing what you're doing, and thank you very much.
Hey, thank you guys. I'm glad this was really easy to organize and nice, good podcast that hopefully the fans enjoy.
And like Dave said, if you need anything, if you need us to put this on ahead of time, to push anything for you or anything like that, please just let us know on Twitter, and we'll do whatever it takes to help you out.
And also, too, low-key, this is even, we haven't been planning this, but, you're, maybe the 7th or 8th NW guy. We love the NWA. We've been interviewing as many NWA talents as we can get. So we're huge fans of the show and product, and we'll do anything to push what we can do. So.
Oh, yeah. That's what's up, man. Yeah, you just definitely tag me on anything on, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, whatever. I'll share, repost, all that stuff. So hopefully we can get as many listeners as possible.
Awesome, man.
Thank you very much, Royce. Have a great night.
Have a great night.
Yeah, see you guys later.
Bye.
Welcome to the 531, where we take our top 5 list on a particular subject, debate it down to a top 3, and then further debate it down to a top 1. We've got author Jake St. John sitting in with us today, and the topic is triple threat matches. The first list we have here is from Randy Osga. He's got Christopher Daniels versus Samoa Joe versus AJ Styles. Second on his list, he's got Punk versus The Miz versus Alberto Del Rio from TLC 2011. Third on his list, Angle versus Triple H versus The Rock. Fourth, The Rock versus Undertaker versus Angle. And fifth, Dudley's versus Hardy's versus Edge and Christian. Just real quickly, what did you guys think about that list?
Was there a match with The Miz in there?
Yeah.
Yeah, Punk versus Miz versus Alberto Del Rio from TLC.
I think anything with the Miz is automatically going to get a thumbs down.
Yeah, you catching on, Dave?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh man, poor Randy. We're always shitting on him. And hold on for a second. We got some claims that Randy thought you were drunk last week, Dave.
Oh,
Do you want to respond to these claims right now?
I don't know why he thought I was drunk. Maybe he thought I was being a little homophobic or something. Maybe I don't know what the whole deal is, but I said that AJ was a big fan of Goldust, especially the Goldust who liked to touch himself, that was his thing, and I'm not drunk. That's my best fucking friend, and if he likes Goldust touching his dick, that's his thing. Randy, mind your own business.
God damn, I thought I was going to catch the first wellness policy violation around here, but Dave, you took the heat on that one.
Yeah, apparently.
Now, we got Jake's brother Zach here, and his list is Douglas versus Funk versus Sabu, Triple H versus Michaels versus Benoit, Bryan versus Orton versus Batista. This is an interesting one. Devitt versus Ibushi versus Loki from Wrestle Kingdom 7. And Joe versus Daniels versus Styles from TNA Unbreakable. Pretty solid list.
I think we should go right to Jake's list because I find it funny, and Jake knows this, how similar him and his brother are.
We have never combined lists or talked about our list until after they were sent in either.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's a question I wanted to ask you. Like, do you and your brother do you like similar things in wrestling, or does he like certain things and you're into other? Like, for me, I love NWA Power. My brother can't stand it. Mm-hmm. I'm a big fan of MLW. He likes it, but he's not a week-to-week watcher. So, are you guys more similar or different in your interests?
Yeah, I mean, growing up, we were very similar. We liked a lot of the same, a lot of the WCW, the Clash of the Champions. That was always huge. I think both of us took a lot of sick days from school. Whenever one of those was on the night before, we'd stay home and watch the tapes. I am huge for New Japan. New Japan that's my thing. And yeah, NXT, like, we have very, very similar tastes as far as characters and things like that go. But yeah, we have very similar tastes, I'd say.
Who was on your list, Jake? You sent me a text. How many, like, you have some of the same ones as Zach, I remember.
So yeah, the only one I didn't have the New Japan on the list, his Devitt match, but I had in no order at all was Bryan Orton, Batista for the storytelling. Mike Flynn reminded me about that one.
Batista.
And then Benoit, Michaels, Triple H.
Yeah.
When Benoit got crowned.
Yeah, pre-murder.
Yeah, pre-murder. The TLC, the first one was Edge and Christian, the Dudleys and the Hardys, just because for what it did as far as TLC and the triple threat match. And I have thoughts on that one. I've got my own opinion as far as how well that was done. And then I had Funk Douglas Sabu, it's promoted as the first ever three-way dance. I don't know if that's true or not, but... And then I had Joe, Styles, and Daniels, the X Division title match.
Tell us for a minute what your thoughts are on that Edge and Christian, Hardys and Dudley's match.
I remember watching the match, and if I remember, I should have double-checked, but I remember Edge and Christian during that match, they were kind of, I don't want to say sick, but it seemed like the poor Hardys just got murdered the entire match. And it seemed like it was the Hardys and the Dudleys that did all the work in that match. And I am a huge Edge guy. I love Edge.
Yeah.
But I felt like the Hardys and the Dudleys, they did all the work, and Edge and Christian kind of cleaned up, which is fine for what their characters were and everything. It doesn't take away from the match. I think the Hardys, like, they deserve all the respect in the world for what they did in that match.
Quick sidebar, too, because you talked about being a big Edge fan. One of the first times in recent memory, like, I popped huge was when Edge came back at the Rumble this year. I was watching that at a friend's house, and I was literally jumping up out of my chair. Like, I was just super excited. Love that guy. That was a great time in wrestling, and especially tag team wrestling, too.
I was just talking about Edge right when he came back, and I remember when they started doing the vignettes for Edge, where he'd be like hiding in a street light or something and running down the street, and they had Edge written on the screen in this like weird fancy lettering, and I thought his name was Hedge. And I was like, what the hell? What kind of character is this? Why is he named after a bush and he's running down New York City in a trench coat? And it wasn't until finally when I realized his name was Edge, I was like, oh, that makes a little more sense.
Yeah, thankfully for him, too. Probably worked out better.
Yeah.
So next up, we got a list from AJ.
Yeah.
We almost had an appearance from him this week, but fucked up on the recording.
Yeah, we lost that one.
Yeah, let's hope we save this one.
We got backup.
Yeah, Zicky Dice, if you ever go into the Maury show, we got you at the Cheesecake Factory. But his list, it has number 1, Funk versus Sabu versus Douglas. Mm-hmm. Goddamn, this next one is a mouthful. But number 2, it's Benoit and Malenko versus Public Enemy versus Taz and Rick Steiner.
Huh.
Yep.
I wonder if you could tell us what event that's from.
No, I don't think he can. He clearly looked that up online.
Third on his list is Tajiri versus Super Crazy versus Little Guido. You know, an old favorite. 4, we got Benoit versus Triple H versus Shawn Michaels.
Okay, that one, yeah.
And 5, he's got Charlotte versus Bayley versus Sasha Banks.
Yeah, I'm sure he. I made him tell me that event. He had to look that one up.
He's a big fan of ladies wrestling. So
yeah,
he had to get one
he
in
is.
there.
Yeah, sure. Anyway,
so I'll get my list in next. I've got Dusty versus Steve Corino versus Terry Funk.
Ooh.
That's from the MLW King of Kings event. Second on my list, I've got Bryan versus Orton versus Batista. Third on my list is the Ladder Wars match that I'm surprised didn't pop up on more, between the Addiction, Motor City Machine Guns, and the Young Bucks. They fucking absolutely murdered each other at that event. 4 is Daniels versus Joe versus Styles, obviously. And 5, Triple H versus Michaels versus Benoit.
Scott got us like a partial list. I don't know if I got it to you, but he didn't get the whole thing.
Yeah, he only liked 2 triple threat matches.
2 or 3 of them. And he brought up that, like, we talked about this too. Like, I'm not generally a big fan of triple threat matches. That's why this list was a little hard for me. Like, you know, there's some good ones on this list, but for the most part, I like classic one-on-one matches.
I'm a Hell in a Cell guy, not Hell in a Cell. I don't know how I dropped the ball on that. War Games guy.
Yeah, War Games were always good.
Give me 2 rings, a cage. I'm fucking all about it.
Yeah, that was fun. The thing, too, is I think it's just overexposure with a lot of it. How many fucking triple threat matches have we had over the years? It's like, it's just not, like Elimination Chamber is like an event now.
Yeah.
And we have multiple. It's like, I don't care.
You've got the inherent problem of if there's a triple threat match, there's 2 guys fighting, one guy's doing what?
Right. One guy has to be laid out.
Exactly, yeah.
Who we got left here?
Yeah, Sheaf's brought us a list. He has Triple H versus Michaels versus Benoit, Styles versus Daniels versus Joe, Hardys versus Dudleys versus Edge and Christian, another Super Crazy versus Tajiri versus Little Guido match.
They have some good ones. I can actually say they wrestled on TNT a few times.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then Bryan versus Orton versus Batista again. Mm-hmm. Jesse got us a list. This is an interesting list, and he's the one that brought us the idea.
Yeah.
He had Mysterio versus Eddie Guerrero versus CM Punk from IWA Mid-South.
Oh, I've seen that. That is fucking excellent. Somebody showed me a DVD of that. Yep.
He's got Triple H versus Shawn Michaels versus Benoit, Joe versus Daniels versus Styles, Funk versus Sabu versus Douglas, and then Angle versus Benoit versus Jericho.
Is that from WrestleMania?
I kind of want to look that up.
Yeah, Intercontinental / European title. Angle lost both without getting pinned by either fall. Yeah, that was weird. Yeah.
Now, Dave, what's on your list? You're the only you've
main event time, baby. All right. So WrestleMania 20, Benoit, Triple H, HBK. It was the very first one that popped in my mind. Say what you will about Benoit, the person, and how his life ended. I noticed some AJ still goes on about how great he is, and we need to forget about that. But he's been hiding.
Yeah, he murdered a few people.
Yeah, so, I know, right? Whatever. I guess
mistakes were made.
That's what AJ says, anyway. But anyway,
yeah, those aren't my words, by the way.
Yeah, Anyway.
Don't take the podcast away.
That's all we got. So, WrestleMania 30. I'm a huge Daniel Bryan mark. So, like Jake says the story. Like, when Bryan, we knew these motherfuckers, no offense, I do like the WWE at time, but I'm going to say it. These motherfuckers didn't want to put the belt on him. They didn't want to give him what he deserved. And we had to literally, they tried to say at a press conference one time, at one of their quarterly meetings with a stock, that, oh yeah, there's a vocal minority that wants him, and it's, getting upset. No, it's not a vocal minority when they're doing the yes chants in hockey games and basketball games. It's like, clearly this guy's over.
I've never been more frustrated.
Yeah, no, I will. And actually, I remember.
Isn't a vocal minority the easiest way to say they've slightly got the majority now?
Yeah, it's so ridiculous. And I remember showing the Daniel Bryan story to people that weren't even wrestling fans and what was going on, and they just ate it up. Like, people got super excited with that. And hey, at the end, at least for a little while, they did put the belt on him. WrestleMania 30. 10 WrestleManias after that triple threat match with Benoit, Triple H, and HBK, we had another good one, thankfully for the story, and I was happy to see Bryan won. And that was also the same WrestleMania where Taker's undefeated streak got ended too. So.
Yep.
That's right, yeah.
TNA. I'm not a big TNA fan overall. They've done some okay stuff here and there. I try not to trash them, but in the end, it's just not something you would probably see on my list a lot of times. But Daniels, Joe, Styles is just amazing. Go out of your way to watch that.
That was fantastic.
Yeah, and then I had an ECW one on here too.
Little Guido Super Crazy.
It was not Little Guido Super Crazy. Not.
Did I shit on the sleeper head of the
It was actually, it was Terry Funk, Tommy Dreamer, and Steven Richards. And the winner was going to face Raven, and it was on the first ECW pay-per-view. This is where Terry Funk won, and then went on to beat Raven for the title. And yeah, it was right. I guess Terry got the win with like a Cradle small package or something, and the pay-per-view like went off the air, and like the satellite feed apparently like was on like 10 seconds later. Like they were literally about to almost miss the finish. They
didn't pay that bill.
Wow.
And finally, I want to say, you guys can correct me on this, it's Edge, Christian versus the Dudleys and Hardy Boys. But I think it's WrestleMania 17, which one it was, where Edge did the spear onto Hardy when they were both coming off the ladder. Yeah. That to me is always just one of the most epic moments. And I want to say that's the same match as they got Rhino, Spike Dudley, and Lita involved too. And forever a big fan of those guys. Forever a big fan of that match. And I don't know if that was 17, but if it was, whatever one it was, like that is one of my favorite triple threat tag matches.
That spot was unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean it still holds up to this day.
All right, now that we got everybody's top 5 list in, a couple matches, or there's been several matches that have made both lists. Styles versus Daniels versus Joe, almost a shoe-in. Triple H versus Shawn Michaels versus Benoit, another shoe-in.
Yep.
And since we have a guest on the phone this week, we're going to give Jake the option of what's going to be going into the third slot. It can be something that's appeared on multiple lists, or even just a match that you feel particular about, that you feel has got to make it in the top 3.
I think being the first, the Funk Douglas Sabu, I remember that match when it happened, PWI and all the wrestling magazines, how different it was, and how, I mean, because, for better or worse, because of that match, where we're at now, it's like a triple three-way dance, triple threat match seemingly every week. I might want to put that one on for the historical significance of that, being the first, or at least billed as the first. I don't know what was the first.
Yeah.
That's a good choice.
It's a good choice. I mean, Sasha, Charlotte, and Bayley that AJ had, I mean, I was kind of...
Yeah, I mean, that was a hard second, that match. Charlotte, Bayley.
Yeah.
That was coming in hard number 2, but I just couldn't pull the trigger on that one.
Yeah, no, I get it. I mean, at the end of the day, right.
There's always ones that aren't going to make it. So now that we got our top 3 in there, what's the first to go? It's tough because you've got 3 heavy hitters.
Yeah. Oh, man. That's tough. I mean, look, say what you will, but that story with Benoit at the time, WrestleMania 20, was almost similar to the Bryan, like we're talking about years later. Like, we never expected...
Yeah.
Benoit was our boy at the time. We can all say that. And we never thought he was going to get the heavyweight title. That was amazing. And then have him and Eddie Guerrero. Yeah.
Do you remember there was a Clash of the Champions with Benoit, and Benoit was wrestling the Giant at the time, and I remember getting so excited because I was like, how is this match going to play out? We're finally, WCW is going to see how great Benoit is, and he's going to do something amazing with the Giant, and Benoit got his arm caught in his sleeveless vest that he was wearing, which I guess sleeveless makes the vest, and he got squashed in 8 seconds.
I remember what you're talking about.
The Giant ran across the ring, splashed him, chokeslammed him, pinned him.
And Jay, as you say that, how similar is that? Do we just think about too? I was comparing this to Bryan. The year before the WrestleMania Bryan won, he got squashed by Sheamus when he was fooling around with AJ looking for a kiss. And he turned around and got brogue kicked and lost in 8 seconds.
Yeah, I mean, wrestling makes you so unbelievably angry sometimes.
Yeah,
just so frustrating, and yeah, I mean, Benoit was the guy. I would watch any Benoit match that was around. I still remember getting a phone call, or actually no, Zach texted me about the whole situation with Benoit. And man, yeah, he was great for what he did before.
So for our top 3 list, you guys almost think Styles versus Daniels versus Joe comes off? Because you got the big Benoit story, and then you've also got the importance of the Funk Douglas Sabu match. With those 2 stories, does that almost make Styles, Daniels, Joe go to the back burner?
You know, honestly, I say...
It's a good match.
They're all good.
Yeah.
They're all good. Maybe just for giggles, I'd like to kind of take the big WWE match off of it, even though like it's got a great.
So take the Benoit out of there.
Yeah, I'd like to see it down to the because I mean, how often do we put TNA on our list anyway? Too,
True.
But this fucking match.
Yeah, give him a bone, give him something to hang
Yeah,
out.
right.
God, every time we talk good about Benoit, we either take him off the list or be like, can't talk about him anymore.
We're only going to commit so far with that.
It's tough. I mean, it's almost like after you talk good about it, you remember everything that happened afterwards, and you gotta make amends or something. I don't know, but yeah.
True. So now we're down to Styles versus Daniels versus Joe, Funk versus Douglas versus Sabu. Who do you put over and why?
Jake, I'll give you the floor, buddy. What are you thinking?
All right. Now, I am going to say that the match itself, Bryan, Orton, Batista, wasn't what I would look for in a match. Not my favorite type of match. However, Daniel Bryan was and remains one of my favorite wrestlers of all time. Samoa Joe, Styles, Christopher Daniels, that match I could watch 100 times. It was the work rate, everything about it was fantastic. But my guy Daniel Bryan won the world title legitimately, so I'm going to have to put that one in the number 1 spot.
All right, so we the other one Joe had up there was the ECW one, so we weren't actually going to... That one had kind of left the conversation, Jake, but since you brought it back, I'm glad you did, because I was thinking the whole time...
I thought we just forgot about ECW.
No, yeah. You know what? I'm kind of glad you said that, because the whole time I was thinking about Bryan too, and it was kind of annoying me that it wasn't in there. But I wasn't going to say that because I knew you weren't new to the 5-3-1, and you and Joe having this discussion. I'm like, man, I kind of wish the fucking Bryan match was in there because that one meant more to me. So
you know what? We got a guest, so it's going to be the guest pick, and it was one of those triple threat matches that's newer in our memory. Dave, got to get that do not disturb next time, bro.
Yeah, baby, they're coming in.
But,
These hoes are calling me.
Jesus, so we're going to give it to Bryan versus Orton versus Batista. Jake, thanks for listening, and thanks for sitting in with us this week.
Awesome, thank you. I had a great time.
Awesome, man.
All right, so that wraps us up for this week. Thank you again for listening to the Working Fans Podcast. So as always, you can find us on Twitter at FansWorking. Our Facebook page is Working Fans Wrestling Pod. We have email where you can reach out to us and let us know what you think also. That's workingfanswrestlingpod@gmail.com. Follow us on Instagram, workingfanswrestling_pod. And then as always, please continue to listen to us on Anchor.fm, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Breaker, Overcast, Pocket Cast, Radio Public, all your major platforms. If you're following us on Apple Podcasts, which we are also on now, and YouTube, please make sure you subscribe and give us a 5-star rating. It helps us bring you these podcasts where we get to talk to you and talk with you every week.